welcome back to my channel. So it's time to talk about a fairly big topic, representation. Now, representation is a topic that is talked about a lot today. Some people are very much for it, kind of crying and pleading for it. Some people see it as something that's super, over-egged, over-talked about, and blown completely out of proportion. They say, why does everything have to have representation? What's the big deal? Why does it matter? Aren't there bigger things to be worrying about in the world today? And to an extent, this could be true. It is certainly right that there are a lot of really big social issues that we should be thinking about today, like climate change, institutionalized racism, the rise of capitalist billionaires slowly taking over medicine, or rather quickly taking over medicine, human rights abuses, all of those sorts of big, scary, overwhelming political topics. But that doesn't mean that we should discount completely the smaller things, especially when those smaller things have the potential to make such a big impact. Okay, if you have always seen yourself on TV, it can be really hard to imagine a world where you can't relate to the characters that you see in the media from even your earliest ages. It feels good and really validating to, especially as you're developing, see characters that look like you and think like you and believe the same things as you in books and in films and in television and in games. But I would argue that it's also equally important to see characters that maybe don't think the way that you do and don't look the way that you do and don't have the same life experiences and background as you. Characters that move through the world in a way that is very different but not negative. Media can be a really safe and open space to introduce people of all ages to new concepts, new ideas, and new ways of life that they haven't necessarily seen reflected in their real-world communities. Okay, for people in some communities who might feel lonely or isolated or outcast or weird, it can be critically important for them to see media that they can relate to show them that they're not alone and that they're not a freak. Media is super important for building empathy and also for building compassion and taking the scariness out of unfamiliar topics like different religions, different family structures, disabilities, all of those kinds of things. It is especially and critically important, especially in media for young people, I think, to include these sorts of things in a happen to be context. So it's not the main focus of the story, this character just happens to be a thing and it's not their defining characteristic, it's just a part of them that everyone around them just accepts and goes with. Because if you think about how humans are made up, if you had to put a list of all of your characteristics, you would tick a lot of different boxes, but none of those one things defines who you are as a person. It's the tapestry of different characteristics and life experiences that make up all of us, and those differ from person to person to person. You want things like disabilities, different relationships, different faiths to just be something that exists in the media and are acknowledged and do affect the way that the person experiences life in the way that these things tend to do, but aren't big and all-encompassing and doesn't cut that character down to just that one character trait being their defining personality trait. Even if you can't relate to all or even any of a character's experiences or identity traits, exposure to a wide variety of different experiences and life stories will only lead to kinder, more understanding, more empathetic, and more compassionate populations overall. And that kind of casual representation, which in my opinion should be the gold standard, takes the taboo out of topics that can be scary or even difficult to talk about, especially if you haven't encountered it before. Okay, relationships similarly should be shown in all ways and varieties for all different age groups, showing that humans love in so many different ways, and showing that in a really healthy way is absolutely vital for A, the development of young people, and B, also reminders of older people. Okay, showing love in whatever form, whomever between, whatever circumstance, with the kind of joy and lack of judgment and purity that all of our favourite fairy tale Disney couples get, only showing that for all different kinds of relationships is vital. For so many younger people, they take their cues on what a relationship looks like, how it's developed, how it's expressed, from the media as well as from the environment that they grow up in. If they only see one kind of relationship, they won't be aware that there are so many different kinds of love in the world between so many different kinds of people. And I'm not even talking just about romantic love. Showing healthy, loving bonds between family, between friends is really, really important for young people growing up to understand how their relationships can be and how their relationships can look. And it also helps them spot unhealthy patterns in their own lives. Certain relationships between certain people being labelled as too adult or taboo or too much for children, and therefore excluding them, similarly excludes the people who want those really natural and innocent and simple depictions of love, either to validate their own emotions or even just to help recognize them. You can't put a name to a feeling that you've never seen. Again, showing all varieties of happy, healthy and consenting relationships between all kinds of people for all age groups, whether they are romantic, platonic or anything else in the population, just breeds more tolerance and more empathy and more acceptance for everyone who sees them. And it can be an absolutely vital lifeline for people who don't see those relationships reflected in their real life community. It lets them know that there is a world bigger than the one that they grew up in, especially if you grew up somewhere rural or a very small town or somewhere that's quite homogenous. It's really, really important because you're not going to get that kind of diversity in the real world. So showing it on television lets people know that when they leave their home, these are the kind of people that they're probably going to encounter, and that there's nothing scary or bad or wrong about that. That's just how parts of the world are. I would say that true representation, so casual, non-judgmental, simple, happen to be, and realistic, genuinely does have the power to completely change the world. Engaging with things and growing bonds to characters who are not like ourselves is only going to be good for us, because not everyone we meet, not everyone we care about, and not everyone we know will be like us. And it's really important to get those skills from as early as possible to engage with people and to show that you can still love someone who is completely opposite from yourself. If you can really engage with and care about and form a bond with a character who has a lived experience, a faith, a love, or just a life in general that is completely opposite or unlike your own, it makes it so easier to then transfer this practice over to the real world and your real life relationships. It is literally completely undisputed at this point that the media that we consume does affect us. It affects our perspectives, it affects our relationships, it affects the way that we see and interact with the world. The only question at this point is exactly how much of an impact it has on us. if that is the case, then surely we should be working as hard as possible to make sure that our stories are written and portrayed by people who care, by people of all different kinds, all different backgrounds, and showing the vast spectrum of all of humanity that exists. If we are in part shaped by what we consume, if you are what you eat, then surely a healthy, balanced, and wide-ranging diet will only lead to the healthiest possible version of ourselves and our population. It means that in the end, everyone feels fulfilled and no one can feel truly, truly alone. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video. Whether you agreed with me, whether you disagreed with me, I would really, really love if you would put your thoughts about this topic down in the comments below. Again, this is something I feel really strongly about. I think it's really important because I didn't see a lot of diversity in the media when I was growing up, and I think it's really great that we're having these conversations now about just improving a lot of the really casual relationships, casual representation of people of all different ethnicities and backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, sexualities, gender identities, just all of that, and showing that in a really healthy way for all different age groups, whether it's young people's media, whether it's YA, whether it's adult. Everyone deserves to go to films, go to TV, look and go, hey, that's like me. And that's such a really lovely feeling, and I want everyone to have it as much as possible. So do let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. If you have any media that you've seen recently that you were like, oh, I saw myself and that's never really happened before, then let me know what that is in the comments. I recently saw the In the Heights film, and I've seen the musical on the stage before, but it was really, really cool seeing the film and seeing that kind of Latina culture represented in a way that I've certainly never seen in a big screen film before. I thought it had such a beautiful feel of community and togetherness, and from like all the reactions I've seen online, a lot of people who grew up in those sort of cultures are like, this is it. So I thought that was really cool, and yeah, I love you all so very much. Please do remember to have courage and be kind, and may all your dreams come true, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!
Can we agree? I look cute today. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba.
So then Yesenia walks in the room. It smells of sex and cheap perfume. It smells like one of those trees that you hang from the rear view. It's true. She screams, who's in there with you, Julia? Grabs the bat and knocks down the door. He's in bed with Jose from the liquor store. No me diga.